Good day. I'm Tom Costello with NBC News. We are on NBC News now, and we have been watching KSHB Channel 41 coverage in Kansas City of the afternoon shooting that, according to our affiliate there, has now resulted in multiple children shot. The police saying we had at least 10 to 15 wounded or injured and at least one individual dead. Kansas City affiliate Channel 41 reporting that there are 12 patients at Children's Mercy Hospital. 11 of them are children, and that, in fact, many of them are gunshot wounds as well. The police are expected to hold a news conference any moment now. This happened just seconds after the players from the Kansas City team, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and others, stopped speaking. Police immediately rushed to the scene of the shooting, which was right at Union Station in downtown Kansas City, right behind the stage that the team was actually standing on and where everybody had gathered to celebrate their Super Bowl victory. I can tell you that the mayor of Kansas City says that he himself was inside and ran for his life, his words, along with his wife and mother as the shooting broke out. Witnesses describe two teenagers, their words, teenagers, young boys or young men, who they believe were, in fact, the shooters. You can see paramedics there removing some of the victims who were on gurneys and stretchers being taken away to waiting fire EMS ambulances and then rushed to multiple hospitals, including, as we've said, University Health, Truman Medical Center, as well as Children's Mercy Hospital in downtown Kansas City. And the local reporters there on the scene all saying that it has been an afternoon of absolute pandemonium and for a good deal of time, confusion and fear as police rushed in towards the sound of the shooting there at Union Station and then chased down one or both shooters. Two suspects are now in custody. We do not know officially who they are or what any possible motivation might be, although speculation is on the ground, and our own law enforcement sources are saying that this does not appear to be any sort of a terror threat, that, in fact, this appears to be a local criminal event, criminal activity on the scene. It's not clear whether this was some sort of a robbery attempt or if, in fact, this was an individual or two individuals involved in some sort of a grievance or a standoff or something, an argument with another group of individuals. Again, we're expecting to get more information from the police any time now. The Kansas City Fire Department has also been reporting throughout the afternoon that they have been treating multiple victims, 10 to 15, as we said, taken to area hospitals, and at least one individual dead. Right there, the steps of the police headquarters. We're expecting a news conference any time now. We have been hearing from the chief of police in Kansas City earlier in the afternoon. She made the point, this is not Kansas City. This kind of violence is not Kansas City. However, our own research has found that, in fact, Kansas City closed out 2023 with a very, very high, like many cities across the country, a very high homicide rate and shooting rate. Nobody expected that a celebration attracting 1 million people to downtown Kansas City to celebrate the Chiefs' Super Bowl victory, that celebration would also turn violent. There were 800 police officers on hand for this event, according to local authorities. Not only 200 local Kansas City police officers, but other officers from across the region, including federal agents, there to support the police because of the fact they were expecting so many people. We are now expecting to hear from Chief Graves, who is about to approach the microphone along with the mayor of Kansas City. Let's listen in.
I'm Mayor Quentin Lucas. I'm joined by Kansas City Police Chief Stacey Graves, the Kansas City Fire Chief Ross Grundison. One thing that we want to note at the outset, the situation continues to have updates. Things will continue to change throughout the night. It's why we are here to give you an update right now. The chief, both chiefs, will be giving more information both on the numbers of victims, the status of victims. The chief of police will give more updates on the investigation. A few things to note that we talked about earlier. In terms of who was in danger, what existed It is my view, as someone who did have to run at the sound of shooting, that there were a number of people who were, in the very least, caught up in the incident in some way. Myself, my wife, lots of families, players, chief staff, and others, their spouses, their families, a number of people who were in or near a Union Station. So many people have been touched by this incident, and we recognize that. We also pray not only for the victims, including the decedent that was discussed earlier and their family, but also the victims of the shootings right now, who we hope are recovering inside our hospitals. We'll continue to give you updated information. At this point, we've talked to our federal partners. We have also talked to the Kansas City Chiefs. We will be talking to the National Football League and others. More so, just to hear that all are safe who are with those institutions, and we continue to hope that all of those who are impacted are safe. To the extent you have information about suspects or others, we do encourage you to call the police. However, if for whatever other reasons you have information about the incident, we will be looking to share that through different methods. So if you have information about the incident, suspects and others, please call the police. If you're looking for other information, we'll try to continue to give you regular updates. I'll say this final thing, and then we'll come back for questions at the end. Today was tragic for everyone who was part of it. I had the chance to talk to my wife just a moment ago, who said we became part of a statistic of too many Americans, those who have experienced or been part of or connected to a mass shooting. That is something that I hope we all recognize is highly problematic for all of us. I continue to commend our police officers, our firefighters, and others who were there to respond instantly. But we also need to figure out a way to make sure that things like this stop happening in our country. With that, I turn it over to the Chief of Police, Stacey Graves.
Thank you. I just want to echo the mayor's thoughts and his prayers, and also to acknowledge that not only the victims who were actually hit by gunfire, but there are a lot more people who are going to be forever impacted by what happened here today. You know, as people were running, you know, a lot of us law enforcement who are running towards the danger also guided those who were in fear of their lives, and that's something to be said of how impactful today's event truly was. Again, we have confirmed there is one deceased person. Our gunshot wound total has went up to 22, and Chief Grundison will provide a little bit more context to that. Right now, we're still working on a total of number of victims. This is still an active investigation. I do want to comment on the question that I got earlier about a video of some fans tackling someone. We do have 3 persons detained and under investigation for today's incident. We are working to determine if one of the 3 are the one that was in that video where fans assisted police. Our investigators are working with all of the surviving victims to connect them with loved ones. We are also working to identify our deceased victim so we can notify their family as soon as possible. We are also in the process of staffing a centralized phone number. This centralized phone number will be for those who are victims, witnesses, and if anyone has video or any information about what led up to what happened here today. Again, we are continuously receiving information minute by minute, which is part of the delay of us coming down here. But I do want to pass this on to Chief Grundison to give a little bit more context to some of the status of our victims.
Just want to say that all of KCFD's thoughts and prayers are with those families that were affected by this tragedy today. And while we were not expecting it, we were ready and prepared for an event such like this. Our KCFD units, along with our mutual aid partners that were working to assist us at this event, touched a total of 22 gunshot victims. One of those was a fatality. We had 8 what we considered immediately life-threatening patients. We had 7 with life-threatening injuries, and we had 6 that had minor injuries. Of the most serious, the immediately life-threatening injuries, we had 8 of those. Those were all transported and off the scene and route to hospitals within 10 minutes. So we felt the response was certainly adequate and appropriate, and I commend all our staff working there today, along with PD, that did an excellent job under difficult circumstances. We transported 3 different hospitals. We transported Children's Mercy, Truman Medical, and also St. Luke's on the Plaza.
Questions?
Yeah, so we're getting...
Who are you asking?
Anyone that can answer the question. So we've heard people talk about gunshots that they heard near the west side of Union Station, and then also gunfire and situations that happened near the fountain and the stoplight over there near the intersection of Pershing. Was there 2 separate scenes? Was there one big scene? Do you know the answer to that question?
That is still an active scene. That is a large ground to cover, as you know, the size of the Union Station. I will tell you, we have located that crime scene on the west side of Union Station. As far as in the front of, that is still under investigation. We have crime scene investigators as well as the detectives. We had a lot of our assault squad detectives and our homicide detectives that were actually in uniform today working the assignment. So not only did you have uniform presence immediately responding to the scene, rendering aid, going towards danger, but you also had detectives that were immediately on the scene that are still there and actively working.
Are you investigating any sort of connection with the earlier shooting in the day at 27th and McKee?
At this time, we don't know if that's connected, but that is something that we are looking at.
Children's Mercy says that they want parents to contact them if they don't know where their children are. Do you know that there may be, like, are there kids there who don't have a parent?
I can tell you we have detectives at all of the local hospitals that are investigating, like I said earlier, trying to connect our victims to their loved ones. Should that be the case and it's a child, someone can either contact police, or if that is what Children's Mercy is requesting, of course they can contact them as well.
Is there anything you can say about motive?
Right now we do not have a motive, but we are asking those who may potentially have any kind of information, a witness or video, to contact police. That's one of that, what I talked about, that phone number that we're setting up that's going to be centralized for victims, witnesses, and potential video evidence.
Any age range on the person?
I do not have that yet.
We learned of a second gunshot victim who died from family. Has that developed into
I have not been able to confirm another death.
We mentioned that there were some victims taken to Children's Mercy Hospital. I understood from staff at Children's Mercy Hospital that they received, they have 9 shooting victims, and it's possible that one of them was an adult. Do you know how many children were shot, if it was 8 or 9? And when we're talking children, are we talking about little ones or 17-year-olds? Do you know, Chief?
Children's accepts patients up to 17 years old. Children's accepts patients up to 17 years old, and but we do not have that information currently on the exact ages of the
But you do believe that
patients
the
that were
children
transported.
were shot?
Yeah, I mean, Children's confirming we did transport to Children's Mercy, but we do not have the ages of those patients.
Mayor, how scary. You had over 800 officers deployed to work this parade, to work outside of Union Station, and still in a matter of moments, 22 people were shot.
I mean, that's what happens with guns. I won't get in a big debate right now. I think we're still doing an investigation, but I mean, what you saw happen was why people talk about guns a lot. We had over 800 officers there, staffed, situated all around Union Station today. We had security in any number of places, eyes on top of buildings and beyond. And there still is a risk to people. And I think that's something that all of us who are parents, who are just regular people living each day, have to decide what we wish to do about it. Parades, rallies, schools, movies, it seems like almost nothing is safe. And we had hundreds of law enforcement there working hard today. And I do want to echo what the chief said, who are running towards danger. But in a matter of seconds, someone who wants to disrupt anything, someone who wants to create any type of situation, or someone who is very simply reckless, can change not just one life or 2 lives, but almost 2 dozen. And that to me is absolutely devastating. and it makes me feel vastly more concerned as a parent just in the world today thinking about that.
Chief Graves,
Can you
just
say about
more
the
about how
number
you
and
were
type of
able
weapons?
to detain those two
just a
individuals who
second.
clearly caused so much harm?
What was the question?
Can you tell us more about how you were able to take those two suspects into custody?
Officers, uniformed officers were on scene. I don't have all the information of exactly what they witnessed, but there was a pursuit, apprehension, slight injuries by our officers taking someone into custody. But as far as you're directly answering your question, I don't have that information right now.
Chief Graves, you have two gunmen in custody.
You were talking about weapons earlier. Can you tell me how many and what type of weapons were involved? Have you recovered any of them?
I don't have the exact on the weapons, but we have recovered firearms. I don't have a number for you or a caliber. We have recovered firearms. At least one.
Okay.
Chief Graves, you have two gunmen in custody. Do you believe there are any others still unaccounted for?
We have 3 people that we have detained. And that is what we are asking for, is if anyone has any information, is a witness or has any kind of video that may provide us if there is anybody else that was involved in this.
So is there a risk to the community at this point?
No, at this time, the scene has been cleared. It's being held. And when I say cleared, I say the scene has been made safe and it's been cleared. Right now, we are in the investigative portion of that, collecting evidence, whether that be digital evidence or physical evidence. That is what we're doing right now. And we're also conducting interviews. Obviously, we have several victims that we need to have a conversation with, to ask questions, also witnesses. So there's a lot of work ahead in this. This is just the beginning stages, but we're moving as fast as we can.
Can you explain that there was like a 5 minutes between the first shots and the second? Is it
all of that has not been determined just yet. The number of shots, the time in between them, the motive, all of that is still actively being investigated.
So we don't know if there were 2 separate scenes. We don't know the answer to that at this point.
I cannot confirm that yet.
And just, did I miss this? Was this inside or outside Union Station?
This was all outside Union Station.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Might have just been somebody who was helping the police. I just want to make sure I'm right with my facts. You said you have 3 people in custody.
We have 3 people that are detained for investigation.
I didn't want to yell it out.
So that is the latest from the Kansas City police chief, as well as the mayor and the fire chief. And the headlines, as you heard, and perhaps the biggest one, is that they now have 22 people who have been shot as a result of what happened at this celebration for the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl win. 22 people shot, at least one known to be dead on the scene. They transported to 3 separate hospitals in the area, including St. Luke's, Truman Medical Center, and Children's Mercy. We're told that children are among those who are shot. We don't have the exact number from that. 3 people have been detained, according to the police chief. One of them, or they did also take into custody 1 weapon, according to the chief. And they are working to confirm whether video, in fact, does show fans tackling one of the suspects. There is video showing fans bringing down one individual, and the police chief said they need to understand whether that individual was, in fact, one of the shooters. They're still working to identify that individual, and they're still working, by the way, to identify the individual who is deceased so that they can notify his or her family. They're asking for more information, whether you know anything about the suspects, about the motivation. If you have any video, they're asking for individuals to contact the Kansas City Police Department with any and all information. The fire chief making the point that they were well prepared for any eventuality. Not that they anticipated this, but they had fire and rescue engines and ambulances on standby in the area, as they always do for a big crowd. And they're grateful that they had those personnel at close range because, of course, they were able to respond so quickly, transporting to those 3 individual hospitals. And they said the 8 individuals who were most severely injured, life-threatening injuries, they had them out of the scene and on their way to area hospitals within 10 minutes. Well, let's go to now one of the hospitals holding a news conference right now.
Level 1 Trauma Center, this is what we trained for. We implemented our mass casualty protocols. We we saw 8 shooting victims in the hospital as a result of that. But we also had a significant number of staff that were on the scene. We were manning the aid stations, so they were able to render aid very quickly to the patients that were injured on the scene. So Mark Steele is our Executive Chief Clinical Officer. He can answer any questions, talk about the condition of the patients that we saw and what's going on there. So Dr. Steele?
Yes, so as Charlie said, we actually had a total of 12 patients, 8 that were gunshot victims. Otherwise, the other 4 had other sorts of problems. And 2 of the people who were shot are in critical condition. The others are all in stable condition.
I just want to make sure I heard the numbers correctly. So it's 8 gunshot victims or 4?
8 gunshot victims in total.
Of those 8 gunshot victims, are they over the age of 18?
I don't know the exact ages.
Can you tell us anything about that?
All I can tell you is that 6 are stable and
Your staff running into the hospital here, and we also saw some of your staff who were stationed here waiting to accept people that are coming in here. What type of protocol do you train for and then have active?
Yeah, now, as a level 1 trauma center, we train for this kind of thing. We obviously hope that it never happens, but we were actually very well prepared. We had enough notice that we were going to get some patients. We didn't know exactly how many. Fortunately, being during the day, we had a lot of professionals, a lot of physicians on here present, and so very quickly we discontinued starting any new surgical cases so that those surgeons and anesthesiologists would be available for any patients who had to go to the operating room. We called in some additional people early to come here to help out, additional emergency physicians, and some other surgeons came from home. Hospital here.
What are your takeaways from today? Obviously, a wonderful day here that has turned into a tragedy.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously it's a big tragedy, such a big celebration, everybody having a lot of fun, and it's wrapping up, and people are going to head home, and all of a sudden this happens. So, and as Charlie said, it's very traumatic. It's traumatic for anybody who was there in the area, not only our staff, but all the people who were around and saw this, and so it's really very unfortunate.
One more question?
When you say critical condition, can you explain that to our viewers, give them a scope of what that means?
Well, that means they're very, very sick, and certainly we hope that they're going to survive, but when somebody's in critical condition, certainly things could turn south, but we hope that doesn't happen with these 2 individuals.
Thank you guys for your time. Everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
We are just
so
wrapping up.
Update. That is the update from one of the hospitals, one of the 3 hospitals in Kansas City where they've transported patients. University Health Center there, Truman Med Center, where they report that they have 8 gunshot wound victims. 2 are critical, 6 in stable condition, and no deaths at that hospital, at University Health. However, they've also transported patients to Children's Mercy Hospital and to St. Luke's, and we're told that there is at least 1 individual who is deceased. Another headline we wanted to bring you from that news conference with the chief, and that's that they are looking into whether this shooting today involving, or rather at the celebration downtown Union Station, is in any way related to another shooting they had earlier in the day in another part of the city. They don't know. They're looking at that. They made mention of the fact they had 800 police officers on hand for this big celebration today, and that included detectives who are assigned to the homicide as well as the assault squad already there. So when this happened, they were already on the scene. We're told mostly on the west side of Union Station and in front of Union Station. And so now detectives are at all 3 hospitals trying to identify the victims and connect them with their individual families and determine who they are. They still can't they still are struggling to figure out exactly who all of the victims are and whether there are children, how many children are among the victims. Again, 22 people shot, and at least 1 is known to be dead. Let's bring in NBC's Adrian Broaddus, also Jim Kavanaugh, former ATF special agent in charge, and we have Frank Puglisi, former FBI officer. I'll tell you what, Jim, let's go to you first, because I know you used to be assigned to the Kansas City field office, and this is all hands on deck in terms of the investigation, right? You're bringing in not only local police, but you've also got ATF and FBI on the scene as well.
Yes, I mean, the divisions for both ATF and FBI are blocks away. I mean, I've been to this train station many times. I know that area very well. Yes, it's really usually a quiet place. But what I think we got here, Tom, is maybe, just maybe, we have an actor with a handgun with a Glock switch. And a Glock switch is a thing that turns a handgun into a machine gun. I mean, the chief was asked if there was firearms recovered, and at first she said firearms, and then she said, well, we have one firearm. Now, we have 22 people shot when they were running in the aftermath of the event. So I think, you know, we've all discussed that unlikely to be a terrorism attack, as they would want to do it, you know, for the most visual impact worldwide and at the height of the event, or shooting into the grandstands where the team is, you know, something like that. They want that worldwide attention, and they're not going to be doing the shooting in the parking lot when everybody's leaving. But, you know, when you get into criminal actors who might be having disputes or gang activity, or it was related to a shooting earlier in the day, why are 22 people shot? This person doesn't have a rifle, unlikely. I mean, it's certainly possible that he got a rifle out of a car, but it'd be interesting to see what the weapons are here. But I think it's possible we have a Glock switch on a pistol.
Jim, and everybody stand by for 1 minute. Let's go to Peter Alexander, who's at the White House. And Peter, I understand the president has weighed in just the last few minutes.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Tom. Just a few minutes ago, we actually saw the president, the first lady. They came out here in front of the White House where they were viewing the Valentine's decorations out front. The reporters had a chance to shout some questions to them. Specifically, we asked them about the latest information regarding the shooting in Kansas City. The president quickly said that we're getting more information about the shootings. We don't have it all. We will share more about that later. We do know the president was briefed earlier this afternoon about that awful situation that took place in Kansas City, that federal law enforcement have been on scene in support of local law enforcement there. And obviously, this is one of the top issues that this president, this White House, Tom, has been focused on, the issue of crime, not just in the nation's capital where it has spiked, but around the country, and more specifically about concerns regarding gun violence. The president has pushed for a greater crackdown, for stricter gun restrictions, but obviously has run into a brick wall in terms of Republicans in Congress who initially allowed for some changes to be made, but really have not allowed for the broader changes that this president has been calling for, in particular his desire to renew assault weapons ban in this country. Again, the president briefed the White House, closely monitoring the situation there, and we hope to share more information as we hear more from the president and from this White House. Tom.
Peter, this has been an issue that the president has been passionate about, gun control, just the absolute proliferation of guns across the country. And we did our own little research here and learned that Kansas City itself ended 2023 with just a record number of violent incidents and homicides. They are not unusual. Unfortunately, this is a common theme across America. And the mayor himself said, Peter, as you probably heard in his news conference, he said parades, you could be at a school, at a movie theater, you could be at a rally. No place is safe in America from guns right now.
Well, I mean, I think as Americans, we all can agree that they're exactly right in that assessment, right? We've witnessed these violent attacks with guns around this country, and everything from a 4th of July parade to now to a Super Bowl victory parade. And notably, this isn't the first parade of its kind. There was another championship parade for the Denver Nuggets back in your hometown, the great city of Denver. Just a year ago, they were celebrating their championship there, and that one was marred by violence as well. It's really now impacted all parts of American life, and it's something that the president has been heavily focused on. As I speak to advisors behind the scenes here, they recognize this is an issue that motivates some Americans, certainly not all of them. When I ask what the top issues they're going to be focused on as they look ahead of the 2024 campaign, by and large, they focus on 3. They say they're going to focus on the issue of democracy, where the president has obviously been feuding as it relates feuding with the former president, his predecessor, facing those 91 counts, criminal counts in a series of different jurisdictions. The issue of democracy, the issue of reproductive rights, and beyond that, the issue of the American economy, where they tout improving consumer confidence. Guns is not on that list, but it is an issue, again, to be clear, that the president and this White House recognizes does motivate a lot of people. They say the only way to get things done, though, is to change Congress. The president himself has said you need to give him more Democrats in Congress. Congress. Without that, there's very little this president can do unilaterally, this White House says. Tom.
And let's just put a code on that. The reason he says that is because Republicans have been unwilling to take up any sort of gun control measure, either this Congress or previous Congresses, right?
Well, that's right. I mean, there was limited progress made on the issue of guns. I can't even keep track now, a year, perhaps 2 years ago. But beyond that, not nearly the sweeping changes that the president wants. And, you know, this isn't the only occasion where the president has run into congressional resistance simply on the issue of border security right now. There was a bipartisan agreement on the Senate side that was going to deal with the border. But some Republicans on the Senate side, Trump allies, and again on the House side have basically said it doesn't go far enough, that's enough. The same holds true on the issue of guns as well. And the president and his aides say, you know, we can pursue executive orders. We can do some of this unilaterally. But, Tom, you and I and anybody paying attention to this knows well, what the president does unilaterally really is much more limited in its scope. It's not nearly as sweeping and can't have the kind of impact that many Americans right now believe needs to happen. Here, by the way, is the president just a short time ago, again, as we had a chance to pepper him with questions on the North Lawn. Take a listen.
We're getting more information about the shooting. I don't have it all. I'll have it later tonight.
Those, again, the words of President Biden really within the last 30 minutes or so. The president expected to stay here at the White House for a Valentine's dinner with his wife. And, Tom, we'll keep you posted if we hear any more from this president or this White House regarding this shooting.
Peter, thank you very much. Busy day at the White House. Thank you. Let's go quickly. I want to go to a statement from the NFL just out. The NFL putting out this, and it says, "We are deeply saddened by the senseless shooting that occurred today near the end of the rally in Kansas City. For the Chiefs, our thoughts are with the victims and everyone affected. We are grateful for the quick and thorough response of law enforcement and emergency personnel." Frank Figliuzzi, again, is a former FBI agent. And Frank, 2023 was, in fact, the deadliest year on record for gun violence in Kansas City. They're not an unusual city in that regard, unfortunately, but it is, in fact, a reality of life in America across the country.
Look, from a law enforcement perspective, in terms of trying to secure a special event, an open air event of this size and magnitude, we now have to ask ourselves whether doing that is consistent with where we are in society, meaning, is it even possible at this point in time to offer enough security to secure an event like this? And I'm beginning to think the answer is no, because short of putting everyone in attendance at a massive parade through a magnetometer, there is no way to absolutely guarantee that there won't be gun violence there. So unless people want this to change, and the vast majority of surveys and polling shows the American people want change in gun enforcement, then we're going to have this continue. So I could talk for an hour about what this investigation will look like, what the local police will do, what the feds will do. They'll do a great job. That's really not the question. The question is, what are we going to do about gun violence moving forward and law enforcement's inability to guarantee a secure event?
You know, to underscore that, Frank, 800 law enforcement officers were there today because it was going to be a crowd of 1 million people, right? You can't possibly, as you suggested, put everybody through a magnetometer. They even had fire rescue personnel on standby, probably anticipating maybe a fight, maybe they might have a heart attack, never anticipating another mass shooting, with 22 people now suffering from gunshot wounds and one victim who has died.
Indeed, and yeah, there is no amount of law enforcement resources that can guarantee against gun violence. And the other thing I'm certain of here is if these gentlemen or people in custody, if they talk, and I'm sure they've been read their Miranda rights, and if they decide to cooperate and talk, I can guarantee you that whatever story and account they give about why they did this will be totally absurd. It won't make any sense to the detectives. It'll be something about a beef with somebody or their revenge against somebody. Somebody dissed me or was wearing the wrong gang colors or grabbed my girlfriend or something of that nature, and it won't make sense, and it certainly won't justify shooting 22 people, 8 of them children.
Frank, thank you. I know you've got to run. You've got another obligation. Thank you very much. Let's go to Chief Carmen Best from the Seattle Police Department, retired Chief Carmen Best from the Seattle PD. And Chief, you understand this as well or better than anybody. When you've got that many people that many officers who are there to protect a scene. And yet, as Frank suggested, you can't run everybody through a magnetometer. And we did hear from some witnesses who were there on the scene who said they saw the suspects, and they appeared to be young 15, 16-year-old boys, but that's one witness, or two witnesses rather, giving us their first impressions.
Yeah, well, very likely it could have been young people. We know that there's so much gun violence happening all across the country, and more numbers every year, and involving young people all the time. And as Frank was saying earlier, often it can be over some, silly dispute. There's nothing that would justify, shooting 22 people. So it's not outside the realm of possibility at all.
Chief, I'm speaking to you from Washington, D.C., and this city has also been experiencing a surge in violence. In fact, today alone, we had 3 police officers in D.C. shot while they were trying to execute an arrest warrant on somebody who has an alleged affiliation with animal cruelty. And there has been a standoff all day. I think it's still ongoing, as a matter of fact. 3 officers shot. Thankfully, none of them is serious. But does it feel to you, as somebody who has been on the front lines of this problem in a major American city, are we losing this battle across the country with violence and with crime and with people who are willing to shoot for no perceived good reason at all?
Well, I don't think it's any secret that we definitely have had a surge in gun violence. There's more mass shootings than there are days of the year. There's proliferation of guns, all over the country, involving both young people and mentally ill people. And so it really is a time for us to try to, as a nation, come to grips with the fact that we need to put in more common sense, gun violence measures or anti-gun violence measures, and common sense gun laws, because there's so much of this violence. It is becoming inherently more dangerous for officers to do their jobs.
And as a result, cities can't hire enough officers, right? It's not a lot of cities are struggling to fill their ranks of police officers for a whole host of reasons.
That is absolutely true. And, I was in Seattle when we had almost 1,400 officers 4 years ago when I was there, and now they're down to under 1,000. So in many large cities, they are really struggling to get the staffing numbers that they need to protect people.
Chief, thank you. Retired Chief Carmen Best from the Seattle PD. Let's bring in NBC's Adrian Broaddus, who has been following all of the developments, all the minute-by-minute, second-by-second developments. And Adrian, if you could, give us the quick headlines. 22 people shot and 1 is deceased.
Yes, and Tom, the family of the person who was killed still doesn't know. That's according to the chief of police, Chief Graves, there telling us moments ago. They're still trying to contact that family. 22 people shot. The majority of the injured, we're hearing, are children. These were folks who were at this parade to celebrate and left running for their lives.
Yeah.
Listen in.
We saw people starting to jump over the gates, and then they were telling us to run, but then they said active shooter, and then so we just dropped down to the ground. My daughter tried to climb on top of me to protect me, and I tried to just hold her so nothing would happen to her.
And on a day known for celebrating love, it's Valentine's Day. So much heartache once again because of a shooting, Tom.
Yep, absolutely. Adrian, thank you. Adrian Broaddus. Let's bring in back Jim Kavanaugh from our NBC law enforcement analyst, former ATF officer. Jim, where were you? You were based in Kansas City for a while, but most recently down in the Carolinas, I believe, right?
Nashville, Birmingham, Dallas, Kansas. Yeah, I was all over the place.
So, Jim, I don't know about you, but I think almost all of us in our hometowns, wherever you live, have experienced a mass shooting at this point. This has become just the Chief Best said there are more mass shootings than days in the year. That's a stunning statement. And as we toss to you for your thoughts, I just want to let you know that the police department now is saying they do not have an exact caliber on the weapon, but they have recovered a single or maybe more than one, but I heard them say 1 firearm. They don't know the number of shots fired. They don't know the time in between the shots. They don't know the motive. but this all did occur outside of Union Station, and even the mayor himself said he was running for his life.
Yeah, well, you know, any of us who watch the news in our local news, you know, every night and every week, we see multiple shootings in our cities. None of us are free of that. It doesn't matter the city you're in. You turn the news on, there's shootings, there's robberies. There's,
So, Jim,
yeah,
100% we're with you. So does that mean if you have, you know, if my kids were younger, should I avoid these kinds of big events? Because it happens in every city. And as the mayor of Kansas City said, by the way, they finished 2023, the deadliest, most violent year on record. Should you just avoid parades and rallies and big sporting events and tailgating, all of that?
Well, it's gotten to the point, Tom, where you almost have to avoid life. I mean, people are shot in cars on their way to work. They're shot just walking down the street. They're shot at work. They're shot at a movie theater at the school. I mean, what place do you not go to anymore? I mean, it's just, you know, we had a nurse here in Nashville a couple of years ago on her way to the hospital. She was shot in the car just for a road rage incident that happened. Those happen every day in America. So there's no real safe place. We're awash in 400 million guns. And we have a Congress who won't do anything at all about it. There's more guns in America than there are people. And I mean, if guns made us safer, Missouri'd be the safest place on earth. It has very lenient gun laws. But more guns aren't going to make us safer. You know, there's a Second Amendment right, and we all need to respect that, but we don't need to have it as a suicide pact. We can have reasonable gun laws that keep people, you know, that shouldn't have guns to not have them. We can have better enforcement. And, you know, a lot of that stuff is blocked by the politicians and the gun lobby.
Can I get, just as Jim, let me go to, if you don't mind, I want to go to Chief Best in the last minute we have left, because, Chief, you've got the experience of being right there on the front lines and trying to solve this problem. If you had a magic wand, recognizing that it may be politically impossible, what would you do to try to secure Seattle and any big American city?
Well, it's just like Jim said, you know, we need to have the will to put in common sense legislation. I certainly believe in the Second Amendment right to bear arms. However, we know that there are situations where there's violence, where there's mental illness, where people are simply too young to have weapons in their possession. You know, they don't need high capacity magazines. They don't need assault rifles, those types of things to minimize the negative impacts of gun violence.
Chief, thank you. I'm going to say thank you to everybody. As we come up towards the top of the hour, we will recap with the headline being that 22 people shot at the Kansas City Chiefs celebration, Super Bowl celebration in Kansas City today. One known to be deceased at this point. They are still looking for a motive. They know that they've got 3 individuals right now already in custody, at least 1 weapon in custody. Not at all clear why this happened. The news continues right now on News Now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.